I start doing this, and immediately I hear something like this. People are just laughing, and then I start to accelerate.
And then the jaws start to drop.
After 1 or 2 minutes, somebody stops me and said, "Are you reading that speed?" I said, "Yes." And then they get interested and we start talking about speed reading.
In this video, we're going to go through a few very quick tips on how you can increase the speed of your reading.
Yeah.
With Michel Wozniak, and he won the World Championship bronze medal, right?
Yes.
In speed reading 2016.
Yes.
All right. So what are like the quick tips? What are the things that they can start to use if they want to increase their reading speed?
The first thing I guess to understand is that just like in NLP, because I guess most of your audience knows a little bit about NLP, it's not really about techniques. It's more about logic and common sense.
Right.
So before even learning any reading technique, we're just making a point to stop doing wrong habits or bad habits, because we have learned to read in a very bad way actually. Just an example. When I was at school and I was reading a page, for example, and at the end of the page I didn't remember what I just read, the teacher was saying generally, okay, read it again slower to be more concentrated. But if you take a step back, if you take a meta position, like we like to say in NLP, and you ask yourself the question, when does your brain actually starts to go someplace else? Is it when there is too much information, it's going too fast, or when actually your brain is completely bored? The answer is when your brain is bored. There is not enough information, so you start thinking about other things. Your mind starts to wander many other places.
I'm thinking as you're saying this about, because last week we did a trainers training where we train new NLP trainers, and we were helping there to make sure they learn. And one of the things we were teaching them is how to deal with like sensory overload, because it's, you know, especially if you want to give training, especially in NLP, you have to be able to be capable of, you know, getting all these information inputs in and handling them at the same time.
Exactly. So we talk about sensory overload, but when we learn reading, we actually work with sensory underload. It's too slow. The brain goes so fast.
Right.
Even if you think about the capacity we have to recognize a person in a crowd, just a very interesting story that happened to me when I was in Romania. A crowd is moving with people, and the person I was walking with at one moment just stops and notices somebody in the crowd. Goes to that person, and they started to think, okay, where do we know each other from? They knew each other from kindergarten. So her brain actually has watched all the different people in the crowd. The brain has made a kind of extrapolation of what that person might look like and figured out that this is the right person. I think no computer in the world can do that. Even if you take the last Google tools, you know, for face recognition, it's almost impossible. And the brain does it naturally without even thinking about it.
So is a big part of speed reading then to unlearn slow reading?
Exactly.
All right.
To change your habits. If, for example, you read something and you don't remember it, read it again faster. Because actually you have to stop underloading the brain. So this is the first thing. It's not even a technique, it's common sense.
All right. And we were talking 2 weeks ago over lunch, we were talking about, I said like, I learned to read auditorily. So I would read something and like read it in my head out loud. And I thought that was something that was slowing me down. But you had a very interesting insight about that.
The insight is very simple. If you look at the person who reads aloud fastest, and the fastest, it's about 600 words a minute. It's huge. It's huge, huge, huge. And when you think about it, what actually limits the speed of oral reading? It's really the movements of the mouth, the movements of the vocal cords, etc. So it means that inside of your mind you can read much faster. If you know that the world speed reading champion reads about 1,000 and something words a minute, it's sure that you can actually, it's called sub-vocalizing. So It's just reading in your mind. But there is a big advantage of doing that. And we know that from NLP, is that in order to memorize, you need synesthesia. So you need to combine the senses. If you read a book, you have the visual sense that is activated. And if you actually read it in your mind, you also have the auditory.
So you have both visual and auditory.
Exactly.
Right.
So it helps memory.
Yeah.
And it never slowed me down, actually.
Okay.
I use it all the time.
And because before we were talking about to unlearn slow reading.
Yes.
How do you unlearn slow reading?
You have to find a way to avoid the various traps you fall into.
Okay.
For example, one trap is that when you read, very often, if somebody looks at your eyes, for example, if you read a book like this and Jasper is looking at my eyes, okay, very often if I read normally, the eyes are going back because
they're jumpy.
Yeah. There are fears.
Yeah.
You have the fear that you didn't really catch the word you just read.
Right.
So as a reflex, your eye is going back to check.
What I do a lot is I go to the next sentence and I go, oh, was this the right sentence to start on? And I go back and like, oh yeah, this makes sense. Yeah.
Yes. And there was a very interesting study that has been done with it. They took computer screen.
Yeah.
And first they have let the person read and go back. Okay, and then they test the level of understanding.
Yeah.
Then they had a system with a video camera that as soon as you read a word, it made it turn white. So it disappeared from the screen as soon as you read it. So you could not go back.
Okay.
And then they made the same test and they realized that the difference between the two levels of understanding were almost insignificant.
Right.
1 or 2%.
Yeah.
But the time, the speed at which the person read the second time was about 20% faster.
Because they couldn't go back.
Yeah.
Right.
So actually, this is a bad reflex because in order to gain 1 or 2% of understanding, we lose 20% in speed. So it's not.
And how do we change that? So if I say, okay, now is it as easy as saying, okay, I will just not look back?
No, because it's a reflex. So you must find a different way.
Okay.
And this last way, I think we can learn it from children.
Okay.
When you see a child starting to read, starting to learn reading, they will use their finger to follow the words.
Right.
And what do the teachers say?
Don't do that.
Don't do that. Don't do that. Babies do that.
Yeah.
No, you don't do that.
It doesn't look cool. If you
it doesn't look cool. But if now I give you an Excel spreadsheet on an A4 paper, for example, and I ask you to find a very specific information, automatically you take your finger. Why?
Like
because what may happen when you're reading an Excel spreadsheet, sometimes you use your finger also to follow a line because your eyes sometimes, if you don't do it, may jump from one line to the other.
Yeah.
Why do you think the eye can jump from one line to the other without noticing it? Why do you think this
Because your eye is just free and it can move wherever it wants.
Yes, because actually the eye movements are very random.
Yeah.
And there's a good test you can do with a friend. I will do it with you and we'll just comment on it and you can try it at home.
Okay.
I will just draw an imaginary circle with my eyes and you will follow my eyes. And you will just notice the nature of the movement, if it's smooth, if it's, And I will do it very slowly. I try to do a perfect circle. How is the movie?
I can describe it with the finger, how it went. It was like...
Yeah. And sometimes it's not even a circle. Sometimes it may go out, in, etc.
Yeah.
And now you will draw a circle with your finger and I will follow it. So very slowly and look at my eyes. How is it now?
Yeah, it's smooth. So
perfectly
it's like,
smooth.
Try that with someone. It's cool to see. Yeah.
And there's a biological reason for that.
Yeah.
The eye is not made to create a movement, but to follow a movement. And if you look in nature, even with animals, the eyes and the brain are programmed to follow a predator, for example, or to follow a prey.
Yeah.
So, and this makes sense.
Yeah.
So as soon as you want to create a movement, you are having your brain do something it is not programmed to do.
Right.
So you will use a lot of energy, a lot of resources just to make that move.
Yeah.
And since this move is actually unconscious,
Yeah.
if you have any fear, automatically the brain will go back.
Yeah.
Back.
Yeah.
It will slow down. So you have to find a way to actually delegate this work to
so
something
you do that with
else.
your finger or with a pen or something?
With a pen or even with a
a
Chinese chopstick. It's excellent. Japanese chopstick, because I think it's more Japanese.
Sure.
And if you do that, what's going on is that it's not your eye that is making the move.
Yeah.
It's actually your hand. So your hand is controlling the move.
And your eyes just follow.
And your eyes just have to follow the tip of the pen.
Yeah.
At that moment.
And at what speed do you move? At the speed that you read it?
Yeah, at the speed you decide to read. And it's not about fast reading, it's about speed reading. Speed reading is being able to manage the speed, to accelerate, to slow down. Yeah. Sometimes you just realize that a paragraph is just repetition or something.
And then you can
just go very fast, very fast.
Okay.
And sometimes you'll go slower.
Yeah.
It really depends.
Okay, so we got unlearn slow reading, which you can do, for instance, by taking a pen or your finger to do. What else can you do to improve the speed even more?
So then it's about just like in NLP. NLP is an approach where you utilize what happens around. If, for example, you notice that you read something and that you don't remember what you just read,
right?
What do you have to do?
Go back.
Go back, yes, in order to catch it, and accelerate.
All right, yeah, exactly. So you accelerate.
So you are correcting the system, actually.
Yeah.
If you don't remember, your brain was going someplace else, so you just accelerate.
I messed that up when I was in university, because whenever I didn't get something, I went like back and went like, and I usually got bogged down in that paragraph, whatever it was.
Yes. Yeah. And on the other hand, if, for example, you realize that it starts to become overwhelming, then you just slow down.
Okay.
So you have to find the right speed. It's never one effective speed. That's why sometimes people ask me, last time I was on TV, they asked me to read in a book. Yeah. I said, I don't know at what speed I'm going to read, because it depends on my level of tiredness. Yeah. It depends on my level of concentration, depends on everything. So I'll just start slowly and then I accelerate
and then increase,
to the speed that I can manage.
Are you actually reading in the speed that you're doing now?
Yes, now it's more the keywords. Yeah, it's more about the keywords.
Can you maybe, because that might be cool, then you can kind of see the speed that he's at.
It will depend. Okay, we'll see.
A little bit, then we can see if that.
Now, also one thing important to know: I've been working now for 2 months, 7 days a week, translating Richard Bandler. So
and he drops into a deep because I saw him in the translation booth, and he drops into a really deep trance when he does so, and it's Okay. So just do a little bit, then we can see a little bit of what it's like.
Okay.
All right, I love it. That's
and the idea also when you do that is that so you are giving to your hand the responsibility of doing something that your brain was doing generally.
Yeah.
The other aspect is that doing that, you will also be able to train your the length of words that you can see in one shot.
Right.
Because there is peripheral vision, there is also foveal vision, I think it's called this way.
Vision.
Yeah. And if you start, for example, reading not right at the beginning of the line, but a little bit further, for example, 1 centimeter further, you force your eyes to really use as much sensors as possible, from the foveal vision. So just by doing that, you can also train your eyes. So this helps you first to avoid your brain to engage into an activity it's not programmed to do, first. Second, it helps you not to go back as you are reading. And third, it teaches your eye to
really catch a broader... to expand.
To expand the...
What is your view on, because I Googled and looked up some speed reading techniques in the past few years, and what I came out with was like stuff like cross-reading a page and taking keywords and stuff like that. Is that a good way of speed reading, or...?
I will give a few answers on that.
Sure.
It depends on your goal when you're reading.
Sure.
Let me give you a few examples. If I am reading, for example, a medical book or something, a technical book, I will read in diagonal.
Right.
Because I need to find precise information.
Right. So you're just scanning for the words that you're looking for.
And you will see the keywords. You will see them. But when I want to read a book, for example, a novel, for example, any kind of book that I want to get really the essence, I won't do that. Why? Because, and this is since I do NLP that I discovered it, an author, when he writes a sentence, he has a goal behind it, especially when you take books like Richard Bandler's books. There is a goal in everything. And if you start to just go through the keywords, you won't actually get what the author wants to give you. It's just as if at a seminar, at an NLP seminar, you would just catch one keyword once
I love that. I love that metaphor for
yes. And
you go into a seminar. One word.
Yes.
One word.
and that's what we're doing when we're taking notes, actually. Because when you take notes, you listen to the person, and then you get focused on your notes, and you stop listening to the person. This is exactly what you're doing. So it looks stupid when we think about it conceptually, but this is exactly what we're doing.
Stop taking notes.
Exactly. You have to live the experience. So when I read a book, and I like what Tony Buzan says. Tony Buzan is the one who created the World Speed Reading Championship. He's also the inventor of mind maps. He says it's a matter of respect for the author. If the author wanted to give you this sentence, the author has a goal. And sometimes you have some critics of books, they will read a novel, but diagonal, very fast, etc. They're like, that book, not so good. But actually they didn't get the book. They didn't get it.
I love that.
So it's stupid. And also, if you want to, for example, take a contest like the Speed Reading Championship, after you have read, they evaluate a gross reading speed. So actually they take the amount of words in a book, for example, 60,000. And if you read it in 1 hour, so in 60 minutes, they divide Y by the other, and they say, okay, you have 1,000 words a minute. This is the gross speed. We don't know about the understanding. Then they ask you very precise questions. The one I had at the contest was, okay, when the hero was in the park in New York, she was running, and somebody went close to her. What was written on the T-shirt of that person? You know that, or you don't know it?
You don't get that when you go diagonal.
Exactly. It's not, was she in the park? No, what was written on the T-shirt? So if you didn't get it, it's over. You have 0 on the question. You have 20 questions, so it's already about 5% of the understanding that is off. So that's why at the speed reading contest, nobody does diagonal reading. They all do conscious
and then there's
reading.
a mathematic, right, between the speed and the understanding.
Yes. Exactly. If, for example, at the questions you have 60% that is okay, they take 1,000 words multiplied by 60%, and it makes 600 words a minute. And this is the real
because
reading
you actually
speed.
Only understood 600 words.
That's
in
why
that minute.
It's not the person who finishes first who wins. There was I read the book in about 40 minutes. So it was a 300 pages novel. And there was a person who finished after less than 20 minutes. But the level of understanding was about 5%. So disqualified.
Well, I can read a book in under a minute.
Yeah, exactly. So it depends on the goal. There are some also, we call that photo reading, where you just scan a page for 1 second, you go to the next one. I think it works in a certain extent. And it depends on the goal you have. If you want to find very precise information, or to have a kind of map or index of the book, it's a great technique. But if you want to really get the content,
no. So you definitely have to read through.
Yeah.
All right. So if we go through kind of the tips that we did in the last this interview, one of them was unlearn slow reading.
Yes.
Which you can do by
First, already by accelerating, by consciously
going like I'm going faster.
knowing that if I am lost in what I read, it's because it's going too slow and my brain is just bored.
Cool.
So going faster.
Going faster, all right.
Yeah.
Then using your finger or a pen
Using
or a chopstick.
finger or pen or chopstick, and this will help first to give the right rhythm.
Yeah.
Second, to avoid going back unnecessarily. Third, also being able to broaden the scope of the foveal view.
Yeah.
But you have to understand that you cannot broaden it very much because actually
so you don't go for the middle of the page to get. So it's just
this
a
is
centimeter
physical
from
sensors. Let's be honest with it.
Yeah.
And the sensors you have in the foveal vision are very precise with details.
Yeah.
The peripheral vision is excellent for night seeing, to see in the night, and for movements.
Yeah.
But when you're reading, the book doesn't move. So actually, you don't see anything. Look, if you look in a crowd and you keep your eyes in the middle, if anybody moves a hand or anything, you see it on the side.
I teach it for uptime.
Yes.
I teach that for hyper observation.
Yes.
I teach that for reading body language and those things because you can see the
Exactly.
movement.
And as the person moves, the brain is interpreting the movements, and the brain just realizes that this is a human person.
Yeah.
But if nobody moves and somebody asks you, okay, what's going on over there? It's impossible for you to say that there's a human being.
Yeah.
You will see perhaps some colors, or very lightly you can say, okay, yeah, there's something brown over there. Well, maybe
It's
a tree.
It's a tree.
Exactly, but you don't know.
Right.
If you don't cheat, you cannot know.
Yeah.
So we have to be realistic.
Yeah.
It's not always about imagining that you will just look at a page and bam, you know everything.
Yeah.
Now this
and that kind of ties into what I guess would be the last tip is that it would be a skill which you should practice.
Yes.
So if you want to get better at it, do it over and over again and practice with it so you get better. Right?
Yes, practice is really essential. And you can practice everywhere, you know, just like NLP skills. Some people say, okay, but I don't have clients, I don't have this, I cannot practice. It's false, it's bullshit.
Yeah.
You can practice everywhere with people around you. You can practice.
I usually say like in the line in the supermarket or wherever. When there's people. I have one exercise I give people when we talk about informal leadership, like who's in charge. I say go in line in the supermarket and let the person that's behind you in front of you and see how they respond. Because some people that are like very alpha, they will go in front of you or not even go in front of you and still be in charge. And there's other people that are going to go like, oh, thank you. And there's so much you can learn just out of such a simple interaction with someone.
And sometimes people are ashamed, you know, for example, in a plane to take a book and to start, in a plane, you're not like this, you're like this. But people are afraid sometimes, you know, to do this because it actually looks crazy. But what I really appreciate in a plane when I start reading, I start doing this and I immediately hear something like this. People are just laughing and then I start to accelerate.
And then the jaws start to drop.
After 1 or 2 minutes, somebody stops me and said, "Are you reading that speed?" I said, "Yes." And then they get interested and we start talking about speed reading.
It's the same. It's the same as NLP. You don't want to be too cool about it and go like, "Oh, I know NLP. I can do whatever I want with it." And the same with speed reading, I guess. Just play it down, and they'll ask you if you do it well.
Exactly, and I like what Richard Bandler says about NLP, that you don't have to learn techniques; you have to become the technique.
Yeah.
You actually have to implement it in your life in a way that is not, you know, showing off or I know.
So it's not about doing tricks. It's about living. You know, your life will improve if you can read faster. So,
it's about applying things.
Yeah.
And it's true in reading. It's true in NLP. That's why I like to connect all this because in order to read faster, you need to find the right strategies, and to find the right strategies, you have to observe. You have to take a step back. Look at what's going well, what's going wrong, and always look for the simplest way to get to the solution. Yeah. And this is, you know, this elegance that Richard tells about in NLP. You just go to the simplest way to get the biggest result. Yeah.
and exactly, if you think about strategies, I mean, there's a lot that you can, pick up if you can read very quickly.
Yeah, yeah.
So cool. Thank you very much, Michael, for the interview.
You're welcome.
See you soon.
Bye.